Simplicity and complexity in art, and why I choose to limit myself. When I first started learning how to draw, I had a very specific goal in mind. I wanted to draw like the manga artists I saw in the mangas I had read. I wanted to learn how they handled the ink pen, how they handled background and perspective, character design, anatomy, the whole 9 yards. I had a very idealized image of what I wanted to achieve and where I wanted to be at, despite having no experience or effort in studying or drawing whatsoever. Very quickly did those idealizations crumble a year into my art studies, and I was forced to face the reality of my progress and skill. A year into drawing, and I was still an ultra amateur, and I had realized how vast the mountain that was drawing. Very quickly, I was forced to simplify my study hours, my workflow, and the ambitions I had. I switched from Photoshop to Autodesk Sketchbook. I gradually switched over to pencils over pen and ink, and I switched over to monthly studies from weekly, with a clear month-by-month idea of what to study and what to focus on. By the end of my second year, if it was ever possible, the mountain seemed larger than it was in the first year, and I simplified even further. I entirely got rid of pen and ink learning. I got rid of the notion of becoming a manga artist and learning how to draw like Takahito Harada. I focused on the strengths only I had possessed. I really liked black and white drawings, and the hatching cross-hatching method really suited me, as well as the pencil adjacent shading techniques like stippling, scribbling, etc. Naturally, I got good at using the default pencil after much trial and error, with airbrush shading and typical painterly techniques. They just didn't suit me. I focused less on nature and backgrounds, and put all my attention on human anatomy, although I still studied those topics as an important part of my training. I increasingly favored realism over manga and anime art styles, interested in perspective and the real human body over stylization. I had also become obsessed with the cel-shading Borderlands art style and the concept art, a fantastical blend of realism and comic book that interested me to no end. One thing still remained in my head though. I had to simplify, simplify, simplify. I studied how Takahito Harada positioned his characters and his backgrounds. I studied the concept art for Borderlands. I learned how to try and push more complicated details in my art with simpler execution and techniques that only a pencil and only I can do. How to shade the face, how to highlight the character's outline, line weight, anatomical accuracy, etc. Learn the complex topics and then simplify these topics to be understandable to my own mind and to those looking at my art. That is what I believe is the end goal of one's own studies, is breaking down the art and breaking down the understanding to a simple point. Understanding what you want to do, being able to break down the reasoning, then doing the same thing to the actual decision making and art process has been the end goal for an artist such as myself. Just because something is simple does not mean it is not complex. This does not mean breaking down the fundamental process to such a degree where it loses its soul, its meaning, its very foundation. It does not mean pandering to the lowest common denominator and losing yourself in the pursuit of this simplicity. It only means that the learning and art making process should be clear and simple, with no confusion. Limitation breeds creativity, and confining myself to a pencil allows me to tackle things that seem impossible with such a quote-unquote simple implement. Sometimes a limitation is not a negative and can turn into a positive with the right thinking and approach. Focusing on your strengths as an artist, limiting your palette of tools, and focusing on the overall bigger picture instead of the smaller details can free you from the shackles of complexity and decision paralysis. I choose to draw with a pencil, with a simple sketching program, with a simple focus on humans and anatomy, because I am a simple person. But within these simple choices lies years of mistake making, priority shifts, and life changes. The limitations I have put on my art and on myself may very well be a lack of skill and acknowledgement of my lacking skill level and being able to portray what it is I want to portray. But it is also a deliberate choice to make things easier and to make it easier to do what it is I want to do and achieve with art. What this means to me may be different for someone else and their level of skill level and understanding. You just need to find the answer for yourself. or rather, discard my answer and find your own. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Our art journey continues. More videos will follow.